Hello, it's Katrina Russell again, and I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. Today I wanted to talk about something that I'm sure every parent out there can identify with. I have a 7-year-old little boy. Obviously he's the best kid that's ever existed in all of everness because he's mine. So that's how that works. But he also is mine. So he's very, very, very opinionated and very, very, very stubborn and very, very. That's what he is. He's very, very. And because of everything that happened with school last year, I have him doing worksheets pretty much every day just to keep him up to snuff on, basic math, basic reading, things like that. But the school also assigned some work that needed to be done over the summer. So today I gave him at my work, because he has to come to my work every day with me, because that's where we live right now. And so I gave him the assignments that his teacher had assigned for the summer. And he lost his mind. This is too hard, and I don't want to do this, and this is too much work. Because normally he picks the easiest sheets in the workbooks that can be done, and this was no, you have to write a couple sentences. And he freaked out, threw things, had a tantrum, made a big mess, and I was like, no, this is not happening. So he lost electronics. He's lost YouTube to he's 18 at this point. And obviously he's devastated for the rest of his life over this. And I told him, and his response is the same response that all children have given since the beginning of time. Not the I hate your response, but the you don't love me anymore response. Specifically designed to guilt you. That does not work for me. He knows I love him. That's never been an issue. So I told him flat out, I do love you. And because I love you, it's my job to make sure that you're a functioning human being when you grow up. And that's not going to happen by letting you do tantrums and not making you do your work and letting you just sit around and watch YouTube all day. You will be a useless human being if that's your life. But I like that. And you're entitled to like things, but you're also responsible for taking care of certain things. And I feel like there's a big disconnect with some people, that they don't understand that's, he's 7. He'd just sit there and do nothing all day if he could, because he's 7. He doesn't understand consequences yet. But he's learning, because this is when he has to learn. He's been learning this for a while now, where if you don't do what I say, and not I'm gonna admit, he's a good negotiator, and I will let him negotiate to a certain degree, because I do think that it's a good skill for him to learn as he grows up. So there are certain things that I do allow him to negotiate on. And even schoolwork, especially this past, because I was the worst teacher ever. It ruined his life to have me as a teacher. So I would negotiate with him and be like, okay, if you do these 2 pages, then you can go. I made him watch, because I had to work, so I made him watch educational shows. Kids' educational shows, like the Magic School Bus or the Octonauts or something like that. But it's you do 2 pages, and then you can go watch an episode of Octonauts. And we had a routine down. He didn't just have to sit there at the table all day doing work. I couldn't do that. So we worked out certain things, and he got rewards and, all that kind of stuff, because I think that that's important, because we all do things. That's why we do things, for the rewards at the end. No one would go to work if there was no paycheck at the end. There might be people who would do, artists and different things, that would do it just for the love of it. But for the most part, we would concentrate on our hobbies and do other things. But we have to pay bills, and we have to, take care of ourselves, and there are certain things that, like cleaning the house, needs to be done. It just does. That's something he's learning. He's always like, when he was little, it was like pick up your teddy bears and things like that, but now it's like, no, you made a mess, go get a broom, go get the dustbin, and go take care of this. And he's not liking it. I'm the worst mother ever. And I'm like, that's fine. I can be the worst mother ever. I will wear that crown with pride as the worst mother ever, as long as you're learning how to be a responsible person. Because someday you're going to be a grown-up. And I'm not going to be sweeping up after you and doing your dishes and taking care of your laundry, and I'm not going to be paying your bills, and you're if anything, you're going to be taking care of me, because that's how that works. When my father got sick, I was the one that moved home. I was the one that took care of him. That's how it works. So, I feel like this is a conversation that needs to be had with lots of people. And I don't just mean children. I mean people. I mean people need to understand. I saw this post today that made me think of doing this, and it was like a meme or whatever they're called. You don't hate Mondays, you hate capitalism, because you have to go to work. And I'm like, nope, I love capitalism. I would hate if I had to grow and kill my own food and build my own shelter and had nothing, like no modernization, because all modernization is at least a team effort. You know what I mean? But I mean, no one's going to make a phone or a car or anything if they're not going to get paid for it. That's all capitalism, and people just don't get that. So I was like, no, thank you. I love capitalism. I love being able to take my money and go buy things that I want. That's great. I would hate to go back to the time before capitalism, where there was no new ideas, because, or at least not as many. Obviously there were no ideas. There was wheels and there was coaches and things. But even then, like, somebody bought it, somebody sold it. That's how it worked. Capitalism has kind of been, I mean, on a lower scale when you think about it, because even back in the days when we were all serfs and peasants and slaves and everything else, like, we did all the work, we got fed, we got whatever, we didn't get paid as much, especially if we were slaves, or I don't even know if serfs got paid. I don't really know how that works. I'm going to have to look into that. I can't remember. I did at one point in time know this, but I don't remember. But like, at least you got, it wasn't like some slavery where they sold off your kids. At least you just lived there and you just didn't make much money. But still, like, you grew a product and you sold the product, and then most of the money would go back in taxes to the royals, who would do whatever they did with it. And basically like communism, where you do all the work and then the government just takes it and fattens their own self with it. But yeah, that's why capitalism's so great. Like, you get to own your own labor. You get to own your own worth. You get to decide how much work you want to put into it. And that's pre-work. So like, if you have to learn a skill, that's work you need to put into the cost of your labor later. So if you have to go to school, or you have to get a trade, or you have to do whatever, then that moves forward. So like, my 7-year-old, which is what started this conversation, he is learning to read and write and arithmetic and all those, even though it's not an R, but whatever. He's learning to do all that stuff because without it, what is he going to do? He can't do anything. So, there's a helicopter. I don't know if it's like a traffic helicopter, or like they're searching for somebody helicopter, or or just whatever helicopter. But anyway. So, yeah, so I'm trying to instill into him that he needs to learn these. I've told him first grade was the worst year ever for me because I had the worst teacher. And because I had the worst teacher, I didn't learn the appropriate skills that I needed to go to second grade. So by the time I got to second grade, I didn't read very well, and we had to read out loud, and it drove me crazy. And I started to really, really hate school. And now he's in the case where his first grade, even though he loved his teacher, best teacher ever, until he had me for a teacher. Then he hated his teacher. But because his first grade was cut short, and that's a big fundamental grade, he's going into second grade. And he's a decent reader. You know, I've read to him his whole life. He started reading in kindergarten a little bit. So because of that, he's decent, but he's not fluent as well as he could be, especially some of the kids that I see his age. And I know him, and he likes to be right. Can't imagine where he gets it from. He likes to be right all the time. So if keeps getting corrected, and he doesn't read as well as other people, and he's seeing that he's falling behind, it's going to really freak him out. So I'm trying to keep him kind of advancing as much as I can, because I'd rather him a little ahead than a little behind. Because if you're a little ahead and it's easy, then it's like, this is good, this is fun, this is no problem. Not too far ahead. My nephew's like 4 grades ahead, and I'm like, he's going to be so bored next year. But just enough ahead that it's easy for him. I did that his whole life. Like, I can remember playing games with him. We had these little bean bags with letters on it, and we used to toss them back and forth, and we'd have to come up with a word that began with each letter. He was like 2. So by the time he started nursery school, his teacher was like, he knows all the letters, and he's this, and I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of what we do. But and I'm not saying he's way advanced, because he's not way advanced, and one of the things is he falls behind on some things, and he's better at other things, just like every kid. But I want to keep him at least understanding and motivated to the point where he does the work, because he'd rather sit around and do nothing. And that just doesn't cut it in the world. That doesn't cut it in capitalist societies, and it doesn't cut it in Marxist societies, where if you don't contribute, they basically put you in the gulag. It just doesn't work. So, yeah, that's what I want to talk about. And I just feel like we all need to remember that it's our job to contribute and not just to take, because I see a lot of stuff about that. Like, why should we have to do this? Why should I have to do this? Why there's rich people out there? Why should I have to work so hard when they're already rich? And it's like, well, they're already rich because they already worked hard. That's how that works. And yes, there are some people who inherited money. That does happen. But most people didn't. Most people even today work paycheck to paycheck. So they're not inheriting money, and they're not passing on money. They're working paycheck to paycheck. That's most people today. And those of them who have inherited money, they've inherited it from people in the past who've worked hard. So at some generation, somewhere along the lines, especially in the United States, because there were no royals in the United States, so at some point in time, somebody, it was generation upon generation upon generation of working hard. So, for instance, my family is a long generation. We've been in this country, well, from the side that I was raised by. So I was raised by a single dad who was raised by a single mom who was raised by a single dad. So we go back, So my great-grandparents came over together, got married, had 5 kids. The mother died. So my grandmother was the youngest. So she was raised by a single dad. And he literally, we're in the Boston area, Massachusetts. He used to have a horse and cart in South Boston in like the beginning of the 19th century, the 1900s, not the 19th century, the 1900s, that he would sell fruit and vegetables out of a horse and cart in the middle of South Boston. He eventually made enough money and was able to move to a suburb. And he raised his kids in that suburb. My grandmother got married after the war, had 2 kids, and the dad took off. So she was now a single mom in the 50s, raising 2 kids, working 3 jobs, doing what she needed to do to get by. There was times they had no food, there was times they had no electricity, there was times they had no nothing. She did what she could to get by. My dad was 16 years old when he quit school. 16th birthday, boom, done, out of school. That was the first day, that's as soon as he could quit, and he was gone. And he got jobs, landscaping, really working hard, whatever he could do. He ended up realizing that he needed at least a high school education, went back and got his GED. But this is like generation upon generation of, we're here, we're working, but like not really money, My grandmother's brothers had some decent money because they started their own business. They did painting businesses and real estate businesses and different things. And my dad realized that. My dad's like, the only way you're going to make any money is if you work for yourself. Because if you work for anybody else, you're just making money for them. So after my dad got his GED, he still worked for a little while until after I was born. And then he started doing like sales jobs because he started to realize that you could at least make commission on sales jobs. And then the company he was working for started to go under. So he was like, screw this. I'm not going to just keep doing this for other people and working my way around. So he started his own business and had his own business for, he started in 1982 and he died in 2015. So 92, 2002, 2012, 33 years about. Yes, I know I'm not very good at math. That's okay. That's not what I do. I can figure it out though. That's all that matters. So anyways, he started his own business for, 33 years or something like that. Whatever, I'm taking up time here. Over 30 years. And then I took it over after he passed away, and it wasn't for me, so I've moved on, and I'm trying my own thing. My brother has his own business. But the point is that we all, and so now he made enough money that he bought a house, and I took over his house because, like I said, I moved in and started helping him out when he got sick. So I took over his house after he died. And so now there's a house. It took 3 generations to get it. And my brother bought his own house because he started his own business. But it took generation upon generation to even start to get to be like a general middle class. That's how it works. And because they came over as like house servants, I think, originally. They were Irish and they were house servants. But the point is we just kept working and we kept working. And now it's like our kids are in private school and we own our businesses and we do our own things. And the only reason that works, though, is that we work our asses off to do it. My dad worked his ass off. My brother worked his ass off. I'm working my butt off. I'm a single parent again. My son's father died. So we do the best that we can. But I'm teaching my son that the only way to accomplish anything is to work and work and work. And to find something that you enjoy doing, because you're going to spend a good chunk of your life. I remember thinking that when I was trying to start my own business. And I was like, what am I going to do? Because I know whatever business I start, that's it. That's my life. That's what I have to invest all of my time and effort into. Because that's the only way you can succeed. So you can either work 3 jobs for another person. And I feel like that's become an issue where everybody thinks that people just need to hire them, that's the only way to make money is to get a job. Like careers aren't a thing. Entrepreneurship isn't a thing. It's just, let me get a job and bring up my minimum wage so I can get a job. But I feel like jobs are something, for the most part, are like training you how to work. So like you get a job as a kid. So that, I mean, back then we could really get jobs as kids. I had paper routes, I had babysitting gigs, I had whatever. My brother worked at the grocery store. You know, you got a job. And that's what those types of jobs are for. And then you learn how to do it. And then you start getting into management. And then you start getting into careers. Or you start going out and taking the skills that you learned at your jobs and creating your own company. Everyone's mad about the billionaires of the world. But the billionaires of the world are billionaires because they didn't get a job. Because they created something. I mean, freaking Bezos started selling books out of his garage, and now he's the richest person in the world. I mean, maybe there's some like princes from like Saudi Arabia that are riches, but you get what I'm saying. And it's like because he worked hard, and people don't want to believe that. They just think that he was born that way, or because he screwed people over, or because he whatever. But no, he did it because he had a good idea, and he worked hard to do it, and he invested. You know, takes money to make money, but he invested what he had to keep going. He took a chance. He worked hard. He didn't just sit back and wait for someone to say, yeah, I'll give you money. So I'm trying to teach my son that he has to learn how to work hard. He has to learn how to put effort in. He has to learn how to take responsibility for himself because nobody else is going to do it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So, thanks, subscribe, like, share. Don't pay attention to my math skills in the middle because that is not what I went to school for. History was my thing, so that's why I need to work with my kid because those basics, like I said, first grade was the beginning of the ends. I hated school until college, and then I was like, wait a minute, I can learn whatever I want? This is awesome. All right, so like, subscribe, follow, whatever it's called. Press the buttons down there, right down there. That's the one. Just press that. Thanks.